coming here, I had the privilege to speak with Rabbi Yitzchak here, and he told me that Gamliel, he knows Gamliel from the Mir yeshiva. So I reminded myself that I wrote about Chabad and Mir. One of my books is Chabad and Mir. And I reminded myself that,
I learned in Mir yeshiva.
Yeah.
What did you see?
So I reminded myself of the Rosh Yeshiva there, a Yid by the name of big Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Shmuel Barenbaim was his name. I also remembered that the Rebbe spoke about a tragedy that he had in his family. The Rebbe spoke about it, I believe, Chafov, 1976. And I heard some background to it, and I put it all in the book. But what I want to say about Reb Shmuel and Reb Yitzchak shared some very interesting Nekudas points that I'm thankful for. And again, please continue sharing, because that's what makes life good, when we share with others and we're not just limited to our own, Reb Shmuel wasn't a chassid, so what? He was a Talmud Chacham, a Yid that, in fact, I'll tell you a story that you don't know, Reb Shmuel. I heard this from a Yid named Ebert. Elchanan Ebert was a Talmud, like a very strong Talmud of Rabbi Shmuel Barenbaim in Mir. And his father already had a connection to Lubavitch, but he went to Mir. He told me many things. He told me one thing is Rabbi Shmuel would come to Chicago to raise money for the yeshiva, for the Mir yeshiva here. Come to Chicago. And he stayed in Elchanan's house. Because he was a Talmud, a student of his. He went over to the bookshelf, like here, Gabriel has a bookshelf there. He goes over, and he sees a book, Zichrei Noisai. Zichrei Noisai was written by a chassid named the Shmerel Sasankin, a Lubavitch chassid, a Rav, a Talmud Chacham, who learned in the Litvish yeshiva before he came to Chabad, and then he learned in Lubavitch. And he writes his memories of who he learned by. And it's a fascinating read. If you haven't read it, you should. I read it years ago. Actually, one of our friends, Simcha Bart, is related to him. Anyway, so Reb Shmuel saw this book in the shelf. I think it was that book, or it was the book Sabota from Reb Lezer, one of the two. Both learned in Lubavitch. And he grabbed the book and he read the book, and he said to Elchanan, I want to read the book again, and can I use the book? The next year he came, he said, where is that sefer? Where is that book? You're talking about to a Litvisher going, a Litvisher Talmud Chacham. Like Yitzchak said to me, he didn't really understand Chassidim. He didn't come from Chassidim, He was tolerant. He was a type of a Yid that was tolerant. He wasn't, an opponent of Hasidim, but he didn't understand it. And yet, when he reads about a Yid like Shmuel Sasankin or Lezer, I forget which one right now, but regardless, both, he was so blown away.
5, 8, 6.
Hello? He was so taken by the words that he wanted again and again to reread it. Well, what's the point? The point is that Torah is such that if you really are connected to Torah, the outer trimmings need to be put at the side. We know a chassid is a chassid, and a litvak is a litvak, and a svardik is a yid, is a svardik. We know all that. That's not a chiddush. But why don't you find out more about the person and explore? The Rebbe, our Rebbe, was very, very much interested in developing a relationship, and the Chassidim, his Chassidim, should develop a relationship. And you know what the Rebbe did? The Rebbe sent Reb Shmuel David Reitschik, who was our Mashpia in Los Angeles when Yitzi and I learned there. in the yeshiva. He sent him to be Menachem Movel Reb Shmuel after his son was killed in Netanya. And I never heard that before, but someone told me, Elchanan Eber told me that Rabbi Reichik told him this, and that the Rebbe, Reb Chadakov, sent him there. Why? Why? There's many Rosh Yeshivas. First of all, he lost his son. His son was killed. They thought it was a Palestinian terrorist, and it wasn't. It was a Yid. It was his son. And they shot him. A guard shot him. A guard of a Jewish hotel in Netanya, where the Kloisenberger have their hotel over there. Terrible tragedy.
It was a mistake? Or?
It was a mistake.
Oh.
The Rebbe said that Fabring in shocking words. What? The Rebbe said that the Rebbe spoke about miftzeh mezuzah. Everyone should have kosher mezuzahs and encourage people to have mezuzahs. The Rebbe said a word that some Rabbonim, some Rosh Yeshivas poo-pooed this, and the Rebbe intimated that this was a result of this. And naturally, when the Litvish Rosh Yeshivas and people heard this, they were outraged. So the Rebbe sent Rabbi Reichik over to explain it's not what the way you heard it. It's not the way the Rebbe spoke, not the way the Rebbe was. But he did make the point that he said, the Rebbe said it to Fabrengen. I don't know what made me say this. He said, I don't know what made me say this. It's in the Sikha, look it up. It came out. I had a feeling that we have to do something now to counter the problems. And it was the miftzah of mezuzah. Then right away there was, all of a sudden another campaign, another miftzah, So the Rebbe's message was like, don't poo-poo it, don't put it down. You don't want to do it, don't do it. But it's a good zach. But he understood that people will take it the wrong way. So he sent Rabbi Reichik over to Rabbi Shmuel Barenbaim, whose son was the Korban Nebuch, who was killed. And there's other stories, many other stories that Ebert shared with me and I put in the book. What I'm saying is that the Rebbe sought to keep a relationship with the Gedolim, with the Tzaddikim, and not as some think that he isolated himself. Yes, Rabbi Soloveitchik and the Rebbe knew each other in 1928, 29, 30 in Berlin. And when Rabbi Soloveitchik came to Boston in 1931, he became the Rosh Yeshiva in Yeshiva University in Yitzchak Elchanan, Yeshiva in 1944, I believe. How many times did he visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe? The Lubavitcher Rebbe was in Crown Heights. How far is Washington Heights from Crown Heights by train? An hour?
2 hours?
Nah.
No.
An hour. An hour. Okay, whatever.
Hour and a half.
No?
Close enough.
Don't you think that over 40, 50 years, these two people who had a relationship in Berlin would see each other?
They didn't?
Very seldom.
Wow.
Rabbi Soloveitchik came to the Rebbe when the Rebbe's mother passed away. Mm-hmm. When Rabbi Soloveitchik's mother passed away, the Rebbe did not go because he stopped going. And Rabbi Soloveitchik and his people were very upset, and the Rebbe knew it, so he sent 3 Chassidim. He sent Rabbi Yochanan Gordon and a few others to be his shluchim. I heard this from someone who was there in the room. And this is what Rabbi Soloveitchik said, the fascinating thing. He said like this. Listen to what he said. He said like this. He said this to his Talmud, Rabbi Aaron Rakefet. He said, meaning the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Given in college, given in Berlin, given a chassid. He was a chassid while he was attending university. By the way, that Yitzchak's grandfather and the Rebbe studied together in the Sorbonne. This Yid's grandfather, and Shem has a video of it.
Which Yitzchak? Yitzchak Hasu?
Yes.
Is that true?
He says, you see, he needs me to come to his Fabrengen and tell him that, even though he lived with him
I didn't know your
because he never asked. You never asked.
You never told me this.
You have to ask. Anyway. So he said, listen to this. He said, gewesen a Chassid while in Berlin. Und ich bin gewesen a Student. And I was a student. I'll let your imagination figure out what that means.
Yeah.
But you understand, the Rebbe was a chassid while in Berlin. And Soloveitchik says about himself, I was a student. Doesn't mean he wasn't from.
Right.
Of course he was from.
Right.
But he was a student. A student, he lives a
It was
student.
Mikabel.
What?
It was being Mikabel there.
Yeah, you could say that. So Rabbi Soloveitchik and the Rebbe had a deep soul connection. And nevertheless, they're in New York for 50 years and they see each other maybe 3 times.
Wow.
So in my book on the Rav and the Rebbe, the Rabbi Soloveitchik and the Rebbe, in that book, I try explaining, and later I saw Telushkin writes in his book on the Rebbe, that they had a soul connection. And when you're good chaverim, like Yitzi and I, your rabbi here, one of the rabbis, and I, we're good friends from childhood, you know?
Yeah.
We played ball together.
Yeah.
We fought with each other, you know what I'm saying?
You don't need to hang out all
We
the
don't,
time.
yeah, exactly.
Well, who did you fight with?
I fought.
Rabbi Winner. I don't want to. I think I know who won.
Yeah. Rabbi Winner and I slept together as 21, 22-year-old boys, students in Los Angeles. We were roommates.
Right.
Roommate?
Yeah?
Who was messier?
Probably me.
Because you were big rabbi. Big rabbi.
He was already then a big
We
rabbi.
were big rabbis. We were boys, you know, the teenagers, and then we were young
You had
adults.
pillow fights?
I don't think so.
That's in camp.
I don't think so.
Stu, you and I will have to.
But anyway,
Yeah.
the point I'm making is when you're two friends and you grew up together, there's, it's natural. You don't have to go, you know what I'm saying? You pick up where you left off 40 years ago.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway, we're all getting to know each other at the Fabrengen. The Fabrengen is a great time to get to know each other. You say l'chaim, you sing a diggin, you have voted. And then you want to develop the relationship. And you want to be a better person. You want to be a better person. That's what it's about. It's when it's said about avoid tefillah and davening and all that. It's all about refining yourself. It's a hard job, a very hard job. It's a lifelong job to become a mensch. To become a mensch is a lifelong job, and I'm not sure we accomplish it. But like our Mashpia Maris, that Reb Melech Tzvi, we have a Lichten Gan Eden. I was a bacher once. I said that to him, you tell us to learn, you tell us to daven, you tell us to think Hasidus before davening, and we try, and we do it, But I have the same, I go down to lunch and I still want to eat with a taiva. I still have the same desires. So what's my davening worth? What's my learning worth? What's my thinking Hasidus worth? I'm the same, expression of yeshiva, the same behemoth,
Yeah.
right?
What do you have for lunch?
What have for lunch? So this is what the Mashpia said to me. Good night. Sei gesund und psudas Teves. Be well.
Be well.
So the Reb Melech,
Masai.
Ad Mosai. So the Melech said, listen to this, Chavre. The Melech said, imagine what you would be without davening and without learning. You would be such a bigger behemoth.
It's true.
That's what he
It's like
told
what
me.
I told you about the camping with,
You know?
with the children. If the kids
So-
weren't there, how much worse would it be?
Everyone has to put things in perspective. And as long as you're going up the ladder and you're working on yourself and you want to be better and you're trying, and that's what a Yom Haledes is about, to exert effort. And one of the good things to do, which we also learned in yeshiva, is every day to take a few moments before you begin davening to think over a line in Tanya, 2 lines, 3 lines, every day of the rest of your life. You shouldn't be able to start davening unless you think over a few lines in
Thank you,
Tanya.
Stewie. Thank you, Stewie.
Bye, Stewie.
Stewie, sei gesund. When you do that, you program yourself to be a little thoughtful before you begin davening. So when you start davening, start praying, you think a little more about the words you're saying, and you.
What happens if you can't remember the few lines?
Then the paraphrase. There's remembering word for word, and the general ideas. Could you remember that your car has a muffler? Yes. Could you remember that your car has brakes? Can you remember when you need an oil change? I think you can, right? You could remember a concept. God exists in this world. God stands upon you. God permeates the world. You can remember those general ideas. So if you have a difficult time in memorizing the actual words, memorize the idea.
But
Hello. Did you understand what I said?
Yeah,
You got it?
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So, with the words, with the Parak Mem Aleph, with the 41st chapter of Tanya that we try to memorize. I've been working to memorize the whole Parak.
Oh, is that a thing?
So
Begin with the first 12 lines, but okay.
Right. So and then you try to extend it. So the better you get at it, kind of the more automatic I noticed it becomes. Then you just go, because you've been doing it for so many months or sometimes so many years that you just think those
Why
words
why
in a
is that?
second.
What is that
Stop.
chapter? I'm sorry, I don't know which chapter that
Chapter
is.
41 in
41st.
Tanya.
But what is the concept?
Concept
discussed?
all for God, Yiras Hashem, Kabbalah soil, accepting the yoke. So, if I understand you correctly, you're making a mistake in the foundational approach that the way that's what it sounds to me. And I'll if I'm right, I'll correct you. And that is, it's not just about memorizing words. That's the way it begins. It's about thinking about the words. I'll give you an example. The Alter Rebbe, chapter 41 starts, Baram tzorech liyas v'zenkorin tomid. However, Baram means however. One must constantly remember. Stop. Before Reishis. What does the word Baram mean? However. In English, when you say however, it's referring to something before. Mm-hmm. What is it referring to? Do you know?
No.
That means you don't understand the Tanya. No, I'm serious.
Thank you.
And and the point
By
is.
the way, I'm taking that out of context.
Wait.
Rabbi Delvin, the headline. Rabbi Delvin says Gamliel doesn't understand Tanya on his birthday. That's the headline of the article.
Okay.
It's gonna be in the New York
No,
Times.
It's gonna be in Vince's Insider
Rabbi
tomorrow.
Delvin wants to share and teach Gamliel how to learn simple pshat, and this is pshat. This is not thinking chassidus. This is, however, what did it say before? And the answer is, the last 5 chapters in Tanya from 36 through 40, the Alter Rebbe speaks about what's called kavanah. Kavanah's ha-mitzvahs. Having kavanah. Ava. He speaks about love. Comes in chapter 41. Is however, that's secondary. What's most important is the foundation. Ikre v'sharsha, right? The foundation, and that is Yiras Hashem, Kabbalah soil. So that right away. So when you say the word however, you just don't say a word. You have to think. What does the however mean? That's number 1. Baram tzorech liyos. What do the words tzorech liyos mean? What does it mean?
Has to be.
What does that mean?